Rules made easy.
Okay, we're back and we're going to go through the workflows that we just kind of gave an overview of. So the first and easiest one to do is the aerial stitch workflow, which, remember, all you need is images. You don't need any GPS, anything like that. There's very little clicking or interaction that needs to happen. So come here, click on the new stitch. Wow, the internet is fantastic right now. Okay, there we go. So, aerial stitch, follow the steps to upload and kick off your processing job. Great. Okay, so we come here and, this is the workflow we talk about. So first we're going to enter some map info, select the images. We're going to check the EXIF tags, which really is just to kind of give us an idea of how big the images are. If the EXIF tags aren't there, which some cameras don't even generate them or people delete them, it's okay for this step because we're really just going to be looking at the size of the image. Verifying the images is just kind of going back over everything you uploaded or you selected to upload and making sure you want to do so. Point calculation, we're going to estimate the number of points it's going to take you to process that, and you can kind of select how quickly you want it and see how that affects the point price. And then upload and process. So let's get started here. Name of the map. We're going to do, it's one that we've done a sample of a bunch of times. It's kind of a small image set, that's taken with kind of high-grade equipment. It's a Sony NAX5. You'll see that when we check the EXIF tags. But it's called Seminole Valley. So, and we're going to call that Seminole Valley Stitch. And map description, it's a pretty place with a plane. Do you want it to be public? Sure. What that means is that if somebody has the link to your publicly shared page, publicly shared map, they can see it, they can embed it, they can do whatever. If you turn that to no, it basically doesn't allow anybody who's not you logged into Maps Made Easy to see the information. So if you're concerned about the privacy of the imagery you're taking and you're using it for your own use, you select no. If you're making something to share with people, you hit yes. So come over here and, once you fill in all the idea is to make all the boxes green, and that makes your next button good. So it kind of guides you through. Are all of the images taken with the same camera? The image requirements are basically, you can't take a bunch of different pictures from a bunch of different cameras and jumble them all together and expect it to work. So are they all taken on the same camera? Yes. Are all the images of the same resolution? Yes. Are the images all taken at the same focal length? This doesn't matter with GoPros because you can't change it. With a fixed focal length lens, it also doesn't matter. But if you're taking... You'd have to have a pretty big rig to have a varifocal lens on the front, which is one that has the capability to zoom, which is changing focal length. That's going to mess things up. So we will check it later to make sure all the focal length and the EXIF tags is the same. Ones that don't match will be rejected, but you'll still be charged the points. So really just... It's really hard to change the focal length while you're flying. So... you're probably fine. So image selection. Images will be prepared for upload and for review, which we'll do in the next step, and then upload. Currently, we're limiting it to 2,000 images, which is a whole lot. Again, it would take an hour of flight to probably capture that. And also, if you're having images uploading files, please use Firefox. We're currently using Firefox. Chrome doesn't like the multi-part uploader we're using. It's fine for maybe up to like 50 images, depending on the resolution, maybe up to 100. If you insist on using Chrome, I personally love Chrome, nothing against it. I use it for all my development, but it has memory management issues when it comes to our uploader. So you can get it to work, but you have to make sure it's the only tab open. You can't have 2,000 tabs and 5 windows and expect it to work. It basically needs to have all the memory, which stinks, I know. So we're going to go ahead, and Safari seems to work well. Firefox seems to work well as well. So select image, come up here, stuck them on the desktop, It's Seminole Valley, as I said. We're going to just select all the images. Mac is kind of interesting because you can kind of sift through the images and see that they're, what you think they are. So you can kind of see these images were taken with the orientation sensor on the camera on. So as the aircraft moved, it thought a different direction was down and thought it should rotate the images. That doesn't matter for an aerial stitch because we actually just strip out all the EXIF information anyway. But you can kind of see the amount of overlap. You get this L-shaped building here. So it's 50. It's a little short of 50% overlap, I would say. You get these features here in 3 consecutive images. So maybe it's more than 50%. You can kind of see, that you get a couple shots of everything, and that's really what we're looking for, is to get multiple views, more than 2 views of everything. So you kind of see this plane in 3 different shots. You see this pad here in 3 different shots, and that's a sign of having good overlap. So we're going to open those. Basically, it already went away, but basically it prepares them for upload. So it's basically opening the files and saying, okay, I have access to these to send them to our site. So after you select at least 15, a little warning comes up that says, you need 15 images. So you have to do at least 15 images. And so all that criteria is met. So we're going to hit next. So we're going to select, as the tooltip over here says, select one of the prepared images. This must be selected manually to give the browser access to the file. We'd love to be able to just open up files on your computer with the browser, but security flaws would not make that a good idea. So come in here, just pick one of the pictures that you selected. So okay, this was taken with a Sony NEX5 camera at a focal length of 16 millimeters, which is long. It's long-ish. Because when you're talking about a high resolution, bigger sensor, it's not that long. So that's kind of a medium focal length. It turns out that the Sony NEX5 geotags the images, which is cool because then later on you can actually just use this kind of GPS placement time or stamp to provide location information for the EXIF workflow. But so these images were actually taken in 2012, and so this all looks right. We know that that's the resolution. So I agree that the resolution numbers are correct. Basically, this is all we're doing in the stitch is saying, okay, the resolution numbers are right, because the resolution numbers that get read out of the file here are actually flowing through to the point calculation. So we're going to agree, and that lets you move on. Just to keep anybody from kind of trying to pull any shenanigans and modifying the EXIF tags to be smaller. So yes, it would result in a lower point calculation further down the road, but we check it 3 other times and boot it back. And in the likelihood that there's shenanigans going on, we tell you that there are shenanigans going on, but we're not going to give you a point refund if you're trying to jip us. So don't mess with your pictures, and we'll be good. So we're going to move along. Scroll down to review images and agree to the terms. So you shouldn't have been able to upload anything that wasn't a JPEG file. Probably should have mentioned that earlier. No PNGs, no TIFFs. They don't have tags in kind of in a predictable way. Images being the same orientation. Wide orientation, not portrait. These are all in portrait, and this one here is in wide, and this one's wide. That has to do with the orientation sensor in the camera. We're not going to listen to that one for this run because the EXIF gets stripped out for the stitch. It will mess you up later on. So turn the orientation sensor off on your camera before you fly. Should be greater than 50% overlap. We checked that. Oblique images should be removed. There were no examples of oblique images here, but basically we're defining an oblique image as one that, so there's the term nadir, which is straight down. We want all of our images to be taken nadir, straight down. if you take your images at a 45-degree angle or a 90-degree angle of the horizon, there should be no images with sky. Sky is bad. Anything off of 15 to 20 degrees is not good, because if the center ray is off 15, 20 degrees, that means the edges are off 45, and you're probably looking like half a mile away at this point. And that's how you end up with kind of crappy edges around your map. The centers might be good. The center of the data might be good, but then it kind of adds on all this junk. And it doesn't look good. So if you make maps like that, don't share them because they don't look good. And then images must be taken at cruising altitude. Not taken at cruising altitude should be removed. So take out the images, as you're taking off. I don't want ground images. We don't want pictures of you ascending, either in an airplane or a quad. Because what you end up with in the quad is 100 pictures or 50 pictures or something of the exact same location taken from different elevations. That's interesting, but it messes up the processing. So cut out all the ones before you get up to your cruising altitude and the ones at the end as you come back in for a landing. Basically, you want all the pictures that you're processing to be roughly along the same plane as far as altitude above ground. So you come through here. Yeah, all these pictures look good. If there was a crappy one, if there was one that was the horizon, you can come here and cancel that. I confirm that the images follow the recommendations. Over here, there's a warning that's like garbage in, it says garbage in, garbage out. Basically, if your data is not good, the stitch is not going to be good, and that's not our fault. If you look at the samples and you see that, you can create some pretty nice stuff with pretty nice data with no weirdness around the edges, and this sample will come out with no weirdness around the edges because this data is very nice. If you have oblique images, or if you have not enough overlap, you'll see holes in the map. There's a lot that goes on in the processing, and those things break it. So if you want to agree and move on, and you have those things in there, you can. It'll work. It'll stitch together the parts that it could stitch, but it's not going to do a good job. The output's not going to be good. And our goal is to make good stuff. So we're going to move along. So here's the point calculation. Basically, there are 15 total images. There are 16 megapixel each at 0.2 points per megapixel. So this is the math. Let me lay out the whole calculation for you. We're going to do a normal, so it's 1x points if you want it. So we'll do that. That basically guarantees that you'll get it within 36 hours plus the amount of time that it took to process. So there's a 250 megapixel minimum. So the lowest point total you're ever going to see is 50 points. And then you can expedite it, which is 2x, or you can do it ASAP, which basically means we're going to do it right now. Start it immediately and kind of preempt all the other jobs that are in there if you select 4x. So basically, you're at the end of the line with normal. You're at the beginning of the line with ASAP, and you're standing in the middle of the line with the expedited job. But we will get it done, in the amount of time that we estimated it'll take plus 12 hours. And again, as you saw me click through this here, so we have our points available here. So the subscription points from signing up, we have 100. We have enough to do a normal job. We have enough to do an expedited job using 100 subscription points. But if we click ASAP, 200 points, you don't have enough points, use lesser settings or buy more points. So you can buy more points or do lesser settings. So we're going to do a 1x job and move along. So this is where we just upload and process. So we're verifying all the information. Points are going to come out of the account. 50 points is about 110 megabytes to upload, so it's going to take a little bit. Once the upload started, you have to leave the window open. There's warnings to keep you from navigating away. But if you close or refresh or say, yes, I want to leave this page, you won't lose points, but you will lose the upload progress and your whole setup. And if you did a georeference and took the time to go through and click on the GCPs, you'll lose the progress. So, I approve. I know I'm going to lose, the points are going to come out of my account, and I'm ready to move forward. So, all right, upload, let it rip. So we're going to sit here and don't close the window or all your progress will be lost. And we're going to watch this upload. So 3 upload at a time, and it retries 3 times. If one fails, if your internet connection just goes dead or things go bad, it shows up red, and you can continue if there's failed files. We've put a lot of work into making the uploader be fairly robust, but occasionally there are problems. So but if everything goes well, it basically uploads and kicks off the job. And so at this point, you can pretty much just walk away. You don't have to sit around and wait. There's no more interaction that needs to be done if you're on a solid internet connection. If you're uploading 500 images, it might take a day if you're on a bad internet connection. But if you're on a pretty quick internet connection, it'll do 500 images in a couple hours, and then it'll kick it off, and you'll get an email that says, that lets you know when it's started, the job has started processing. So as you can tell, as these are uploading, it kind of just goes, scrolls away, and so we're gonna fast forward here and show you what happens afterwards. Okay, so we're almost done, and you can see, they've all kind of ticked away one at a time. And what this is doing is all these images are getting uploaded to it's going to a public cloud server. It's going to a place that it can't be accessed by anybody else, but it is going to cloud storage, which then gets accessed securely by our processing server. So after this one's done, we can kind of see what it's going to do. Watching files upload is like watching paint dry. So it's analyzing kind of what was uploaded. This is where we're checking point totals and things like that. But it kind of automatically ticks over. So the map hasn't started yet. It isn't due for a while, but we'll try to get to it sooner if we can. Remember, we selected the normal processing, which is 12 hours plus, or 36 hours plus the processing time. So we're kind of estimating that this will be due in 2 days or so, the 25th. So it hasn't been started. It's not finished. A lot of this isn't filled in yet, but you can turn off email notifications if you don't want to get the emails. Public hosting, remember we selected that it was true. Let's go ahead and make this included in the MME gallery. These controls are a little funky. We've had some people complain about them, but they're kind of part of a library we're using. So, but if it's green check, you come in here, you change the normal check, and then you press the green check to select it or to approve it. So now I took it back out of the gallery, but that's fine. This is not georeferenced, and it is not georeferenced with EXIF tags. You can change notes and say this one is for the demo, and keep notes as to how you collected it there. That's not shared with anybody. It was normal urgency as opposed to expedited or ASAP. Took 50 points. Was collected back then. All these things we talked about. If you remember, we were under the 250 megapixel limit. It looks like we were just under it at 240 megapixels. So probably one more image added in there, and we would have... actually, we deleted one of the pictures. We canceled it, so it went down to 15. It was 16 before that, so it probably was over. It probably would have been more than 50 points had we not canceled that one image. There's no output yet, so it's still locked at 00. When we read the EXIF tags, we got the camera type. There's no way to read what kind of gimbal and what kind of aircraft are used. So, you can put in DJI Phantom 2 in here, and gimbal was the Zenmuse H3 3D, which is totally not what was used, because you can't, this is just sample stuff, you can't put a Sony NEX5 in there. You cannot do that. Ignore that I said that. That was just sample for editing that. Oh, what did I do? Oh, oops. I hit back accidentally. So something that is not showing up here quite yet, but the attribution text is a little tag that goes at the bottom right corner of the map when it shows up here. And basically, if you have a company, you can say company's name here, company, and then the company's website. So, if that map gets shared, it shows that you made it, and then they can click at the bottom corner and go to your website and see how you made it. This is if you mark it public, which this is, you can actually give people this URL. So you can just copy and paste it out of here. You can click directly, or if you have your own website or blog or whatever, iframe embeds are very common. That's how people put YouTube links and things like that on their site. So this is a pre-formatted iframe embed, and you can just copy and paste that into your code onto Tumblr, onto a bunch of things. And another way to share up here is the Facebook share link, which we'll go over after the map is completed, because it doesn't come up with anything very interesting right now. So again, we're kind of just waiting for this to get kicked off. Let's go back out to the dashboard and see what's happening. Oh, it looks like it started. So this job's in pending. You can see the point use here was 50 points. So our ledger went from having 100 and 0 as the only two transactions to having negative 50. You can see our account lost 50 points out of the subscription total. We didn't have any purchase points to buy or to use. But you can see the list here of all your pending maps. So as it makes progress, and this is a small job, it'll probably be done in the next 20 minutes, 20 minutes to half an hour. Even though we did the normal service level, there's not much else going on, so we can get to it sooner. So until tons and tons of people get on the service, things are going to be pretty quick. So we'll come back to show when there's some progress here. This changed. So before it said it wasn't processing yet. Now it's currently cooking. So once it's done cooking, it'll let you know. And we'll come back in a couple minutes and see the final product. Okay, well, we can see that our aerial stitch has been busy and is now kind of roughly 40%-ish of the way done. So it'll be another couple minutes till it's done. So we'll check back in on that in a little while. Okay, well, we were waiting for uploading our EXIF example, our initial stitch example completed. So we're going to go in and check that out. And so you click on it, and it brings up this kind of view of the map here. It's a real small sample, so it's not real big. But it has a black background and has a random rotation. If you remember, this was east-west and this was north-south. But being that there was no georeferencing, it doesn't have any way to know that. So it's currently like this. Eventually, we will be adding a tool to adjust it. You'll be able to trim and rotate the map and reprocess it one time to get it north up and to get rid of some of the kind of stuff here on the edges. But this data was pretty good. The issue here is just the rotation. So you can see down here is kind of a little preview. So it shows when it was finished. It shows, the output image itself. This is a small, keep in mind that this is a small sample, and the output resolution of this was 16K by 18K. That's pretty big. That's like, it's not gigapixels, but it's a whole lot of output, and that's one image. So the TIFF image that's an output for this is still probably a couple hundred megs. This is an image that, even this small sample, is an image that a lot of computers would have a hard time opening on its own, which is why you kind of have to go down this what's referred to as a slippy map or a web map route to be able to get access to the full resolution. Look at this. We can zoom in on an individual leaf and have it take up, you know, tons and tons of space, and then zoom out and then see an entire farm. So to be able to get access to that kind of resolution, you have to have really big images. And this is a small example. And sometimes this will get to 75K by 75K, or we've seen some pretty big maps. And there's no hope for a computer to be able to open all that at one time. So our approach for displaying this is really the only way to handle output that's that big. So we can include this in the gallery. Change the notes. We kind of went over that. So this is it. This is your first completed stitched map. Black background because it's not georeferenced, but the last way to share it that we promised we'd show is this Facebook share button, which I'm not going to log in right now, but basically it puts up a little square and says, my map on Maps Made Easy, and you can put it in there and share it with your friends. And what they'll see when they go to that is basically it goes to this page, which is a full page view of the map. And the attribution that we showed before down here. So you can kind of see over here in this corner, when I go over company, it says www.company.com. So, company made this with Maps Made Easy. So yeah, that pretty much concludes the stitch workflow. Check out the other workflow details that we're going to do for the EXIF and the base map georeferencing processes.
Maps Made Easy.